You're listening to podcasternews.com.
Welcome to the LA Story Podcast
with Stevie Wilson.
Hey people, this is Stevie for the LA Story. We're here with Quinn Thompson from St. Grace, and we're talking about the evolution of his company, which, if you haven't heard about it, where have you been? I think most people would recognize the company if just from the picture of Jessica Simpson walking the crosswalk wearing his pants. Which is really kind of cool, but he has a whole line of things. But we're talking about how his company got started, and quite frankly, you'll see pictures from the blog, but you can see this is his office, and it's very cool. There's lots of cool things in here. So we've been talking about California as a lifestyle.
Yeah. You know, I moved to LA in the late '80s, and but I'd always vacationed here as a kid. My parents that I was mentioning, you know, they went to art school here in the '60s, and they met at LA Trade Tech downtown. But I actually grew up in Washington State, and I grew up on a sailboat, and lived at the yacht club, and I had kind of an interesting life. And my mom and dad were always kind of in the art world, and you know, but they also had other interests like motorcycles and cars, and like I said, living on a sailboat. So I had kind of a diverse childhood, and it probably influenced me to kind of always be around, you know, different countercultures and you know, unique opportunities and, you know, different kinds of lifestyles. So anyway, when I moved to LA, you know, like I said, in the late '80s, you know, I immediately wanted to kind of get in the fashion world.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of started off as a sales rep in the early '90s, and as time progressed, was in men's and women's and had different showrooms, and I was kind of always on the sales capacity. And you know, one day I just said I could make a T-shirt. You know, I needed a good knit line, but you know, the juices of the world all had sales reps.
Right.
So I went to a fabric show across the street from my showroom, and I found one fabric, and I made 7 styles in 7 colors in that one fabric, which is still, that fabric is still essentially on the line today. It's our it's 100% modal fabric. It's really light, and
yes.
Kind of reminded me of an old vintage T-shirt, and kind of at that time no one was really doing really thin sheer T-shirts. So it's something I introduced, and they all had raw edges, and you know, they were kind of, you know, chic at the time, and so it took off. You know, that $1,000 investment turned into, you know, $25,000 in sales. And but what I didn't know was that it would take not only almost all of that to get it produced, but then I was into the next season, and you know, the vicious cycle began with, you know, the money and the financing, and you know, you always think, well, next season I'll pay off everything. Well, you don't realize that you're developing this season after that and season after that, and you're buying quantities of fabric, and yeah, it was a long time before I saw the light, put it that way. Jessica Simpson definitely helped me.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
That was amazing, because it really took the whole line to a different level.
Yeah.
And a different awareness.
Yeah, it basically took me out of being completely in debt to paying off the company, and I was actually able to buy my house that year. So.
And that's what people don't understand, is that when a person goes into fashion design and is creating a line, that to get your thing started, you go to a factor and borrow money to be able to buy the fabric and make all the product till you get the money back from the, you know, people who buy it and sell it. Right.
And even these days, you really only get factored once you ship. So you actually have to do the initial investment and do all the initial work and borrowing from, you know, friends, family, credit cards. I mean, essentially at that time, American Express was my partner, you know, because it was really the only avenue I had to borrow money and you know, kind of take the company to the next level. You know, banks unless you already have an established history and a line of, established history with your business,
right,
and say a property or two, they're not really eager to loan you money. So
no, they aren't.
The bank gave me 10 grand, but that was gone, first season. So it was really the credit cards that kind of got me going. So anyway.
It's interesting because now that you're this successful, which is kind of a nice thing, the line has established and become a mainstay, a staple within the fashion industry. And where's it going in terms of what you're doing?
Well, we've actually started to branch out into a lot more fabrics. Typically, what we do is garment dye. And we kind of keep the philosophy of, it's got to feel great, when you pick it up, it's got to fit great, and it's got to have amazing colors. And so, where we were doing primarily tops, and then when the Carol pant really happened, which is the large, the flowy pant, we've kind of expanded that. So now we have a range of those types of pants in different silhouettes. Dresses have been a big part of of what we do. We've introduced things like Italian wool jersey, so it feels like a t-shirt, but it's great for layering because it's it's uber light, and just it doesn't have that itchiness that most people associate with wool. So, and as we're going, I'm starting to plan spring, everyone's, listening to the sales reps, and they're all telling me, we need, more fashion pieces, or more of this, or we need more dresses. And so, we kind of work together on that because they're kind of on the front lines.
Sure.
Probably the newest thing outside of what we've done with St. Grace is we introduced the men's brand, which is called Gregory Quinn. And we kind of piggyback on a lot of the women's fabrics because we found that although they're light and light and soft, we'll kind of eliminate maybe the real drapey ones that we would maybe put into dresses, but we'll use a lot of the jerseys to make guys t-shirts.
Yes, which make it's very comfortable for guys. Guys love that.
Yeah, and so we're making Pima cotton t-shirts, so they're super soft, thin but not too thin, and it's like your old best friend. And then we're making Henleys. We're probably going to get into doing kind of what we've done with St. Grace, but the whole lifestyle thing. We'll probably do printed boxers, and we might even make casual pants, things like that. So it's very like essentially what St. Grace is, and again, California casual.
Okay, hey people, we'll be right back. Okay, this is Stevie for the LA Story saying see you.
Thanks for joining Stevie Wilson on LA Story. Feel free to check out other podcasts and videos. Bookmark it now. www.la-story.com.